After a faffy journey, we arrived in Ometepe, where we stayed at Casa de Guio, which for about £13 a night I thought was pretty good. Jack had bought his first ever pair of sandals as an adult man, and it took him a while to grasp the concept of sizing and strap adjustment. Fantastic to watch. I still wasn't feeling daring enough to try street food, so we went to a pizza restaurant for dinner, and then on the way back saw this weird procession of locals on horses and cows trotting through the streets.
The next day we spent most of our time doing university work, then went out for a lovely spot of lunch with one of the locals. In Moyo Galpa there was a band playing that night, and Beth as always got carried away by the rhythm, and tonight was no exception, showing off some dance moves some of you may remember from our wedding. Ravenous after all that dancing, we headed to one of the local grill restaurants, then had an early night ready for the next day's trip.
After a quick introduction to the neighbours, we got in a very interesting taxi and headed to Peña Inculta Wildlife Refuge. The actual island of Ometepe is bigger than you think, and it took about 50 minutes to get to the first place, driving across active airfields and dodging the local cattle. There were no guides at the refuge, so we just decided to have a walk round ourselves, keeping our eyes peeled for any animals and massive trees. There were tons of the local birds around, which are called white-throated magpie jays, and look like this. But we'd seen so many we were honestly bored of them. And then I spotted howler monkeys. But not just any howler monkeys, a female howler monkey with a baby on its back. After stopping to take more pictures for about 20 minutes, we headed to the next stop.
This was called Agua de Ojo and was surrounded by monkeys until the water got overrun by a horde of influencers and they all ran away and hid. The food was partly discounted by our entrance price but was absolutely shocking. So we headed to our final spot, Punta Jesus Maria, which was a freshwater beach at the tip of the island where we had a beer and Beth introduced herself to one of the locals.
The next morning we were up out and early again for another trip, again heading towards the middle of the island, but this time it was for a spot of kayaking, and while you might think it's a river, it's actually a swamp. This time we were here for the wildlife, so we booked a guide. The whole trip took about 2 hours and we actually got to see quite a few things. We saw tiger herons, blue herons, green herons, cormorants, and even some sleeping fruit bats, which just look like little lumps on this tree.
There was one main animal we'd come to see though, which was the Cayman alligator, which can grow up to 2 meters in length. We searched all over the swamp for around half an hour, at which point we had our first sighting, which due to not bringing my camera was incredibly badly filmed, so you'll have to use your imagination for this one. But that's his head facing away from us. After a few more close sightings, like this one where you can see its mouth open, it was time for us to paddle back and for me to carry on with some much needed university work.
Most hostels also have a book swap situation going on, and I replaced the first book I've read in 15 years.
Today we were venturing on from Ometepe, so we had a 10-minute walk down to the port and booked onto an early morning ferry which would take us back to the port of San Carlos. The ferry itself was absolutely empty, which was a welcome change from the sardine can we'd got on the way over. And Beth was ecstatic at the knowledge that we got to go through the quiet and tranquil town of Rivas. After withdrawing some money from the cash machine and almost getting run over by multiple buses and taxis, we headed to the bus station where we were going to get our next connecting bus to the small coastal village of Playa Gigante. And the journey was surprisingly smooth, with an hour on a boat and 45 minutes drive.
As soon as we got there, we stopped for lunch, where they had some of the cutest strays I've seen. So obviously they got more food than I did. It only took us 10 minutes to get to the hostel, and it was on the top of a hill with an absolutely insane view. It was called Monkey House Hostel, again fairly basic, but had everything we needed. Today was actually our 3-year anniversary, so we didn't waste any time and got straight out to the beach, where we saw this group of vultures hiding in the shade. Obviously we had to have a celebratory ice cream, and then got a couple of beers from the shop, where the local cat was blocking the freezer trying to stay cool. And then we went back to sit and watch the sunset, and found what could possibly be the best part of this hostel. Puppies! What a 10 out of 10 day.
The next few days were fairly routine. We'd wake up early before the heat and pet some puppies, head down to the nearby beach where me and Beth would run and do a little workout. We'd take this sketchy route back up to the hotel and then pet some more dogs and toads. But we couldn't pet this pigeon because it was a bit too high off the ground and was also one of the loudest bars in Playa Gigante. Beth also avoided petting this massive cow in the road, and also these lovely vultures eating a goat's head. In the afternoons, we had opportunity for a nice stroll down the beach and also do a couple of surf lessons. But unfortunately, we don't have any footage of that. Then it was back to petting a few more dogs for many, many, many hours.
While my time was spent mostly doing that, Jack was doing his uni work, trying to smash it out before we have a busy week next week. We also watched the sunset every single evening, and every day it just seemed to get better. We also had loads of nice meals, including lots of tacos, some weird sort of fish fingers, more tacos, a taco filling inside a plantain, the nearest thing to chips and gravy that we could find, which was poutine, and then a salad bigger than my head, and lots of nice fresh fruit. I have actually googled pie and gravy, but there's just nothing in the whole of Central and South America. So we also played a lot of cards to take my mind off this.
And Beth, as always, won every single game.
And then we cheers to Jack's last day in the Navy.
Early the next morning, we jumped on a bus, which doubled as an oven, and headed back to Beth's home away from home, Rivas. After a very short stop in the centre, we jumped on an even busier oven and made our way to the beach resort of San Juan del Sur. We'd booked in for a week of Spanish lessons and a homestay with a local family. The room was quite comfortable, but was somewhat lacking in bathroom privacy, but was not lacking in the unintentional disco light department.
This whole week was very structured. We had 5 days of 4-hour lessons a day here, definitely worse settings for a lesson, and there were one-on-one lessons which worked out at £3.70 an hour, which is just ridiculous. We also signed up to a gym for the week, which had a full weight section, a BJJ section for Jack, and CrossFit classes for me. So after 2 months of doing not a lot, we spent every day doing at least one session, and by day 3 my body struggled to move.
When we weren't studying or in the gym, the main beach and its incredible sunsets were only a 5-minute walk away, so we headed down there whenever we got a chance. After one final day of studying while looking out over the bay, we woke up early because it was time to make the 5-hour journey out of Nicaragua into Costa Rica.
This is my Spanish teacher, my lady. Hola.
Hola.
She's got something she wants to say.
Al City. Al City.